I barely slept that night. Not that you can call lying motionless in bed, staring at the ceiling, sleep. My body was still. My mind was anything but. Rachel lay beside me, oblivious. Peaceful, even. That same woman who had kissed me goodnight, who whispered, "I love you," just before turning over and drifting off. The same lips that had whispered God knows what into M's ear. She had no idea that I knew. Yet, the next morning, the house was filled with its usual noises, coffee brewing, kids getting ready for school, Rachel humming some stupid song as she fixed breakfast. The smell of bacon made me sick. It was surreal, like watching actors perform a scene from my life while I stood off stage, unseen. I didn't confront her at breakfast. I didn't want a confrontation. Not yet. I wanted answers. I wanted control. And I was going to take my time. "Aaron," I said calmly as he poured cereal. He flinched, just barely, but I saw it. "Yeah, Dad. I need you to stay after school today. Help me in the garage." Okay." His eyes darted nervously toward his mother. Rachel didn't seem to notice. Or she pretended not to. Once the kids left for school, I turned my attention to Rachel. She was sipping her coffee, scrolling through her phone like any other morning. Probably texting him, I thought. "You've been busy lately," I said, keeping my voice light. She smiled. "Work's been crazy. You know how it is." "Crazy, huh? Must be exhausting." I watched her closely. "Maybe we should take a little trip. Just the two of us." She looked up, blinking. Caught off guard, if only for a second. "A trip? Where would we go? Does it matter? You deserve a break." Her fingers paused on the screen. "That's sweet of you, but I don't know if I can get away right now. Work's piling up." I smiled genuinely, but not for the reason she thought. "Of course. Work always comes first." She gave me a thin smile in return, then stood up and kissed my cheek before heading upstairs. I waited until I heard the shower running. Then I went to her purse. She was sloppy. That was her mistake. I found the second phone tucked into the hidden zipper pocket, a cheap burner, like something out of a bad crime show. The kind of phone you buy when you don't want to leave a trail. I turned it on. Unlocked. She trusted me that much. The text messages made my stomach turn. "I miss you. Can't wait to feel you again. When are you going to tell him? You're too good for him, Rach." M. Always just M. No full name. No clues. But I had a feeling. The tone was too familiar, too comfortable. This wasn't some one-time fling. This was deeper. Dangerous. And whoever this bastard was, he wanted me gone. I forwarded the entire message thread to my own email, then wiped the phone clean and returned it to her purse, exactly where I found it. By the time Rachel came back downstairs, towel wrapped around her hair, I was sitting at the table, sipping my own coffee like nothing had happened. "Everything okay?" she asked, sensing nothing. "Perfect," I replied. "Absolutely perfect." That afternoon, when Aaron got home, I met him in the garage. He shuffled in, avoiding eye contact. His face was pale, his shoulders tense. "We need to talk," I said quietly. "Dada. No excuses. No lies." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I could see the conflict waging inside him, the loyalty to his mother fighting against the guilt of lying to his father. I softened my voice. "Son. I know. I found the box." His face collapsed. Like all the weight he'd been carrying finally crushed him. "I'm sorry, Dad," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I'm not angry with you, Aaron," I said firmly. "I'm angry at your mother." He wiped his eyes with his sleeve. "She made us promise not to say anything. She said if you found out, everything would fall apart. It already has." For a long moment, we just stood there in the silence. Then I asked the question that had been gnawing at me. "Do you know who M is?" He shook his head. "I never met him. But I know he comes around when you're at work. Lily saw him once. She said he drives a black SUV. A black SUV. That detail hit me like a punch to the gut. Because I knew who that belonged to. It was him. Suddenly, a face filled in the blank spot where M had been. My so-called friend. My neighbor. My wife's secret lover. Matt. The man who lived 2 houses down. The guy who came to every one of our barbecues. Who brought his kids over to play with mine. Who sat at my table, drank my beer, and smiled in my face while screwing my wife behind my back. It all made sense now. The secret meetings. The carefully timed schedules. The text messages. The way he always seemed to know when I wasn't home. I felt my hands clench into fists. But I didn't explode. No, that wasn't going to happen. Because rage is loud. But revenge is patient. For the next few days, I played the part. The calm husband. The loving father. The unsuspecting fool. Rachel bought it. Of course she did. That's the thing about people who cheat. They start believing their own lies. They think they're smarter than you. They think they're always one step ahead. I let her think it. Every smile, every goodnight kiss, every love you was a silent dagger in my chest. But I smiled back. I held her close. And while she slept peacefully in our bed, I planned. The first thing I needed was proof. Real proof. Not just the letters. Not just my son's terrified confession. I needed something concrete. Something that couldn't be explained away. I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my old buddy from high school, Tom. He ran a small private investigation business now. Mostly boring stuff. Insurance fraud, missing persons, cheating spouses. The last part was his specialty. When I called him, I didn't have to say much. Tom, it's bad, I said. There was a long pause on the other end. How bad? She's seeing someone. My neighbor. Tom let out a low whistle. That's cold. You want confirmation? I need evidence. Photos. Videos. Whatever you can get. You sure you want to see that? I don't want to, Tom. I need to. Another pause. Then he sighed. All right. Text me his name, address, vehicle, everything you've got. I'll handle the rest. And just like that, the hunt began. While Tom worked his end, I kept mine steady. I watched them. Both of them. Rachel and Matt. I noticed how she always left the house at odd hours, supposedly for work or errands. Always perfectly dressed. Always with her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Matt would find excuses to come by, returning borrowed tools, asking about the lawn, casual conversations over the fence while we mowed our front yards. The ball's on this guy. Smiling, friendly, pretending like he wasn't stabbing me in the back every second. But behind his cheap sunglasses, I saw it. The arrogance. The confidence. The assumption that I was too blind to see what was right in front of me. You see, that's what makes men like Matt dangerous. They don't think you'll ever fight back. And that's exactly why he was going to lose. A week later, Tom called. Got something for you, he said simply. We met at a small diner across town. Neutral ground. As far away from home as possible. Tom slid a manila envelope across the table. Everything's in there. I took a deep breath before opening it. There they were. Crystal clear photos. Rachel and Matt, wrapped around each other like teenagers, outside a motel a few towns over. Stolen kisses. Quick glances. One photo even showed them entering the same room, hand in hand. I flipped through them slowly, feeling the fury boil under my skin but keeping my face calm. Tom spoke again. There's more. He handed me a USB drive. Security footage. From the motel lobby. My contact pulled it for me. I pocketed it without a word. And get this, Tom added, lowering his voice. Matt's not exactly Mr. Clean. I dug into him a little deeper. Turns out he's got some shady business going on. Cash under the table, unreported income, possible tax fraud. That got my attention. Oh, yeah, Tom nodded. Looks like your boy's been playing dirty for a long time. A small smile tugged at the corner of my mouth for the first time in weeks. Good, I said. Because now I had more than just proof of the affair. Now I had leverage. I drove home that night with a strange calm washing over me. The plan was starting to form, piece by piece. Destroying them wasn't going to be about rage. It was going to be about precision. About control. The kind of control they both thought I didn't have. Rachel was already asleep when I got home. I stood in the doorway for a long while, watching her breathe. The woman I married. The woman who promised forever. She had no idea the storm that was coming. And I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to scream. I was going to dismantle their little fantasy. Quietly. Piece by piece. And when I was finished, they would both wish I had simply walked away. The hardest part was pretending. Smiling. Laughing at Rachel's stupid stories. Acting like Matt's casual neighborly visits didn't make my skin crawl. But every polite wave across the driveway, every fake conversation about the weather, every phony compliment on his landscaping was one more brick laid in the wall I was building around them. And soon, that wall would close in. I waited a few more days before taking the next step. First, I visited my attorney, not some random lawyer downtown, but my guy. The one I used years ago when I helped my cousin get custody of his kids during a messy divorce. I remembered how thorough he was. When I laid the evidence on the table, his eyebrows arched. This is a lot, he said, flipping through the photos and the motel footage I'd burned to a disk. There's more, I said calmly. I've got a PI digging into the guy. Financial dirt, too. He leaned back in his chair, letting out a long breath. Well, he finally said, if you want out, this'll make sure you walk away with custody, the house, and probably everything else. I shook my head. Not yet. I'm not ready to file. He blinked. You want to stay married? No, I said sharply. I want to let them think they've won. For now. He stared at me for a moment, then smiled faintly. I see. Because this wasn't just about divorce. Divorce would have been easy, clean, quick, but that would have let them escape too easily. I wasn't interested in escape. I was interested in collapse. I started playing the long game. Every night, I was suddenly the perfect husband. Flowers, fancy dinners, weekend getaways. Rachel ate it up. She probably thought her little affair had breathed new life into our marriage. Maybe she thought the guilt made me more attentive, more eager to please. No, sweetheart. That wasn't guilt. That was strategy. The more she felt safe, the more careless she became. Meanwhile, I started dropping seeds into the community. I invited Matt and his wife, Kelly, over for drinks one evening. That poor woman completely oblivious to what her husband was doing behind her back. We stood on the patio while Rachel played hostess, pouring wine and making small talk. You two been staying busy? I asked casually. Oh yeah, Matt chuckled. Between work and everything else, barely got time to breathe. I smiled, sipping my beer. Funny. I heard you've been making some side deals lately. Matt froze for half a second. Just a flicker, but I saw it. What kind of deals? He asked, feigning innocence. Oh, you know how rumors get around. I shrugged. Under the table stuff. A little creative accounting here and there. You're smart, though. You'd never do anything stupid. His jaw tightened, but he forced a laugh. Yeah, people like to talk. Kelly looked between us, sensing something, but not understanding it yet. Good. I wanted that tension simmering. Let him start to sweat. Let him wonder how much I knew. Let that tiny seed of paranoia take root and grow. By the end of the night, Matt was visibly uneasy. Rachel, on the other hand, was glowing, completely fooled by my performance. See, she whispered later that night, snuggling up next to me. I told you things would get better. I kissed her forehead, smiling. Better than ever, babe. And I meant it. Because we were approaching the part where things got really interesting. The next day, I got a call from Tom. Got something big for you. Hit me, I said. Matt's been hiding money. Offshore accounts. Fake invoices. Laundered through his side business. And guess who's been signing some of the paperwork on his behalf? My stomach twisted. Rachel? Bingo. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. That's the leverage you needed, Tom said. You want me to dig deeper? No, I said. This is enough. More than enough. The pieces were all falling into place now. Rachel wasn't just cheating. She was now legally entangled in fraud. She didn't even know it yet. And Matt? He had dragged her into his dirty little empire without blinking. Two snakes, wrapped around each other, tightening the coil. Now all I had to do was squeeze. You know what they never tell you about revenge? It's not the rage that feeds it. It's the patience. The kind of patience where you can eat breakfast next to the woman who's been stabbing you in the back, sip your coffee, smile, and ask about her day, all while you've got a folder full of evidence sitting in your safe that could burn her whole world to the ground. I learned patience. I mastered it. And now it was time to let the pressure start cooking. That evening, I sat Rachel down in the living room. Kids gone. Phones off. Just the two of us. I've been thinking, I started gently. She smiled, that fake soft smile she'd perfected over the years. About what? About us. About where we're going. She reached over and touched my hand. I know it's been rough lately, but No. I cut her off, squeezing her hand. I mean financially. I know you've been stressed with the business. You've had to take on extra work. Meetings. Trips. Her eyes flickered, just for a second, and then settled back into that sweet, lying gaze. Yeah, you know how it is, she said smoothly. Gotta do what I can to help. And I appreciate that. I smiled warmly. But I've been thinking. Maybe it's time we start looking into joint investments. Maybe even bring in a financial advisor. Her hand stiffened slightly under mine. Why? She asked carefully. Just for security, I shrugged. You never know. Life's unpredictable. It'd be good to know exactly where we stand as a family. I let those words hang in the air like baited hooks. She hesitated. I guess it couldn't hurt. Bingo. The hook was in. The more I pushed this narrative, joint accounts, transparency, financial counseling, the more nervous she got. Because she knew exactly what would happen if someone took a real, thorough look at our finances. She didn't know I already had. Over the next week, the cracks started spreading. Rachel became increasingly jumpy. More business trips, more secretive texts. And Matt, he was practically sweating through his collar every time I waved to him from across the street. The man was unraveling. I saw it in his eyes every time we crossed paths. I saw it when I casually mentioned my new interest in offshore tax shelters during one of our neighborly chats. Oh yeah, I said. A buddy of mine was telling me about how risky those offshore accounts can be. One audit, and the whole thing comes crashing down. Matt's face went pale. He laughed nervously. Yeah, risky stuff. Better to just keep everything clean, right? Exactly, I said, locking eyes with him. Clean. That's how you stay safe. He nodded, but I could see the panic rising behind his forced smile. Then came the real blow. Tom had dug even deeper into Matt's business. Not just the offshore accounts, but shady partnerships, wire transfers, and one particular paper trail that linked Rachel directly to the fraud. Her signature was on multiple forged contracts. Some she probably didn't even realize were illegal. But the law wouldn't care. She was on record. She was in it. Neck deep. The beauty of it all. Neither of them knew just how far my net had spread. They still thought I was blind. They still thought they were winning. But in truth, they were already trapped. The night before I made my final move, I stood outside under the stars, looking across at Matt's house. His lights were still on. Probably another late-night meeting between him and my wife, planning God knows what. Maybe even laughing about how blind I was. But that was fine. Let them laugh. Tomorrow, the hammer drops. Tomorrow, the game changes. Morning came like any other. But this one was different. Today, I wasn't the fool anymore. Today, I was the architect. I kissed Rachel goodbye like always. She smiled, humming as she grabbed her bag, probably thinking about whatever lie she was about to tell. Another client meeting, no doubt. I watched her pull out of the driveway, the SUV disappearing down the street like nothing was wrong. Good. That's exactly how I wanted her to feel. Comfortable. Untouchable. But behind her perfect little world, the wheels were already in motion. At exactly 9 a.m., I met Tom at the cafe downtown. He was already there waiting, sipping coffee like he hadn't just built me the perfect case file over the past 2 months. We didn't need many words. It's ready? I asked. Tom slid a thick folder across the table. Every document, every transfer, every signature. Timeline's ironclad. Anyone who looks at this will see exactly what they've been doing. Lawyer. Contacted. He's waiting for your go. I nodded. And the IRS. Already have preliminary interest. They love this kind of thing. White collar, high value, tax evasion. Their favorite breakfast. He smiled. I didn't. There was no pleasure in it. Not yet. At noon, I called Matt. He didn't answer at first. I called again. Finally, he picked up, voice tense. Hey man, what's up? We need to talk, I said flatly. There was a long pause. About what? About your business, I said. About my wife. Another pause. His breathing grew audible. I don't know what you're talking about, man. Don't insult me, Matt. My voice sharpened. We both know exactly what you've been doing. And who you've been doing it with. He swallowed loudly. Look, I think maybe you're. No. You're done thinking. Here's what's going to happen. I kept my voice cold. Calm. Measured. You're going to meet me tonight. The park. 8 o'clock. You're going to bring Rachel. He tried to interrupt. I cut him off. If you don't show up, I release everything. Another pause. You don't have anything. I almost laughed. Matt, I have everything. I hung up. At exactly 7:59 p.m., I was already standing under the old oak tree at the park, the one just far enough from the lights where we couldn't be easily seen, but close enough for the security cameras to catch every second. Tom had made sure of that. At 8:07, their car pulled in. I watched Rachel step out first, followed by Matt. Both of them pale, eyes darting like frightened animals. They walked up cautiously. Why are we here? Rachel demanded. I looked her dead in the eyes, the woman I once thought I'd grow old with. To finish this, I said. Her face twisted. Finish what? You're acting crazy. Stop lying. My voice finally cracked. Sharp. Loud. The first real burst of emotion I allowed myself. She froze. Matt tried to step forward, but I raised a hand. Don't. You're done. He stepped back. I know everything, I said. The affair. The motel. The offshore accounts. The fake contracts. Rachel, I turned toward her. You signed them. Her face drained of color. That's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And worse. I reached into my coat and pulled out the folder Tom had prepared, copies of everything. I could go to the police tonight. The IRS. Hell, I've already consulted attorneys. Matt started to panic. Look, man, let's be reasonable, okay? We can work something out, Al. No, you don't negotiate with someone holding a loaded gun to your head. I leaned in. You both wanted to build your little world behind my back? Fine, but it's going to cost you everything. Rachel's lips trembled. Please. I cut her off. Here's what happens next. You confess everything. To your lawyer. To your accountant. You sign full custody over to me. You waive any claim on the house, assets, retirement. Everything. Matt shook his head. You can't do that. You've got nothing. I smiled for the first time that night. Matt, I have federal charges. Tax fraud. Wire fraud. Money laundering. I hand this to the feds tomorrow morning, and you're both doing time. I let the silence strangle them. Rachel's breathing grew shallow. Her hands trembled. Or, I added softly, you give me everything I want, quietly, and I make sure this never sees daylight. Matt finally cracked. His voice broke. Okay. We'll do whatever you want. Rachel's eyes pleaded, but she knew it was over. I leaned in close. My voice dropped. See? That's how you destroy someone, Rachel. Quietly. Completely. I turned and walked away, leaving them standing in the dark. First, the paperwork. My attorney drafted the agreements, full custody, sole ownership of the house, relinquishment of all shared assets. Clean. Bulletproof. Unforgiving. When Rachel and Matt received the documents, they didn't argue. They barely spoke. That was the beauty of fear. It silences even the boldest liars. Rachel showed up at my attorney's office 2 days later, alone. She looked smaller. Like someone had finally yanked the mask off, and underneath was just this hollow, broken thing. She signed. Every page. Every clause. Every demand. No tears. No tantrums. Just quiet resignation. I watched from the next room through the one-way glass. I didn't need to be there, but I wanted to see it, to witness the moment she surrendered. That was the first piece of justice. The second came a few days later, when Matt's finances were reviewed by the authorities. See, even though I promised to hold back, I made sure the right people caught wind of certain transactions, anonymously, of course. Tom made a few phone calls. A few files landed in the IRS tip box. Quiet. Legal. Surgical. Matt's empire began to collapse before it even finished growing. His offshore accounts? Flagged. His shell companies? Exposed. His business partners? Jumped ship before they got pulled down with him. By the end of the month, federal investigators had opened an official inquiry. The best part? I didn't even have to lift a finger after that. The government moves slow, but when they move, they crush. Rachel, meanwhile, was unraveling. She moved out of the house within a week, into some small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy. No more designer handbags, no more spa weekends, no more shopping trips funded by my blind trust. The kids stayed with me. And you know what? They were better for it. For the first time in months, maybe years, they smiled again. Real smiles. Genuine peace. Like a weight had been lifted off of them too. Because they weren't just victims of her betrayal. They were her collateral damage. And I'd never let her use them like that again. One evening, maybe 2 months after the storm finally broke, Aaron came into my office. He stood there for a moment, awkward, hesitant. You okay, bud? I asked. He nodded. I wanted to say sorry again. I stood up and crossed the room, put my hand on his shoulder. You don't need to apologize, son. None of this was your fault. You were put in an impossible position. You did the right thing. He looked up at me, eyes filled with relief. Thanks, Dad. It was the first time I saw him breathe easy in a long time. And right there, in that moment, I realized something. The house may have burned down, but I had saved what mattered. Rachel still tries to call sometimes. Leaves long, rambling voicemails about how she made mistakes, how she wants to rebuild our family, how Matt manipulated her. Please. She wasn't manipulated. She was greedy. She wanted it all, the stable husband, the safe home, the family portrait, and the thrill on the side. And now she is neither. Matt? Last I heard, he was lawyering up, watching his life drain away, dollar by dollar, under the weight of an audit that's likely to turn into an indictment. That was his reward for screwing over the wrong man. And me? I'm good. Really good. I still live in the same house, the one I built, the one I worked for, the one she tried to destroy. It's mine. Every nail, every brick. The kids are happy. The lies are gone. And every now and then, when I sit on the back deck with a drink in my hand, watching the sunset, I allow myself one small, cold smile. Because I didn't just survive. Just when you think it's over, when you've delivered your blow, watched them collapse, and cleaned up the wreckage, life finds a way to remind you. It's never that simple. 3 months had passed since Rachel signed away everything. 3 months of peace, of stability, of silence. Then the letter came. At first, I thought it was just routine, legal correspondence, maybe some tax form. It came from my lawyer's office, but the return address wasn't familiar. I opened it carefully. My hands didn't shake, not yet. Inside was a single-page copy of a deposition. Not mine. Not Rachel's. Matt's. He had flipped. I sat down at the kitchen table and read every word slowly, deliberately. Matt had cut a deal with the feds, surprise, surprise. Typical coward move. Rather than go down alone, he started talking. And in that confession was something I hadn't seen coming. Buried halfway down, under a section labeled Known Co-Conspirators. Initially approached by Rachel G. and her associate, Daniel Carson, to assist in the structuring of undisclosed offshore investments to hide personal income and misallocated funds from prior private business dealings. I froze. Daniel Carson. That name shouldn't have been there. Daniel was Rachel's ex from years before she met me. A name I barely remembered. Some old flame from her college years, long out of the picture, or so I thought. But apparently, he wasn't out of the picture at all. This wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just infidelity. It was bigger. She had been playing long before Matt came along. Matt was just another pawn in a scheme that stretched back even further. That's when the rage returned. Not fiery, not loud, but cold. Calculated. Familiar. I called Tom that night. You need to find everything you can on Daniel Carson. Tom didn't even hesitate. Already on it. Wait, you already started? You think I trusted she only cheated once? He said flatly. I ran a deep background weeks ago. Daniel popped up in some wire transfers, but I hadn't pieced it together until now. And Tom exhaled heavily. You're going to want to sit down for this. Daniel Carson hadn't just been some ex-boyfriend. He was the architect behind Rachel's side business. Years before she met Matt, she was already playing games. Daniel taught her how to funnel money from side hustles and private contracts into quiet little blind spots that never touched our joint taxes. It was small at first, barely noticeable. But when she married me, when she gained access to my credit, my income, my accounts, that's when they scaled it up. She used me as her cover. My legitimate salary made her dirty money blend in. My stability gave her credibility. My blind trust gave her room to operate. The affair with Matt? That was just a distraction. The real betrayal had started long before. I wasn't just a husband she cheated on. I was the idiot she laundered through. I leaned back in my chair, absorbing it all. The signs were there. The strange deposits. The occasional unexplained withdrawal. The time she insisted on handling certain bills. I dismissed it as simple household management. She knew I trusted her. She counted on it. And now I finally saw the full scope of what she was. The funny thing about betrayal is that once you accept it, truly accept it, something inside you changes. You stop feeling heartbreak. You stop feeling pain. All that's left is the work. The surgical work of dismantling the person who thought they'd outsmarted you. My attorney wasted no time. Once we had the full scope of Rachel's financial crimes, thanks to Tom's digging and Matt's little confession, the wheels turned fast. Formal complaints were filed with the IRS and the State Financial Crimes Unit. We laid out everything. The off-the-books accounts. The falsified invoices. The hidden income streams dating back years. The connection to Daniel Carson, who, it turns out, had his own ongoing investigation brewing. I wasn't just aiming to hurt her. I was aiming to erase the life she built on my back. Every dollar she thought she'd hidden was now evidence. Every secret transaction was now a charge. Every lie documented, signed, and submitted. Within 2 weeks, Rachel was served. Not divorce papers. Federal subpoenas. Her world collapsed in real time. I was sitting on the front porch when the agents arrived. Watched them knock on the door of her sad little apartment across town. Watched her stumble, frozen, as they handed her the paperwork. No screaming. No drama. Just that sweet, hollow silence. Tom called me a few hours later. She's panicking, he said. Lawyered up immediately. Let her lawyer talk, I replied. She'll find out very quickly that no one's coming to save her. Because that's the part they never prepare for, not the collapse itself, but the isolation that follows. Matt was busy fighting his own battle with the feds. Daniel Carson was hiding behind his team of corporate attorneys. And Rachel? She was caught right in the middle, abandoned by the very men she thought would protect her. Poetic, really. What followed was a legal chess match. Her attorney reached out to negotiate. Maybe there's a settlement we can reach privately, he offered. My client is willing to be cooperative. I could hear Rachel breathing in the background of the call. Heavy, frantic, desperate. I spoke slowly. Calm, ruthless. Your client had every opportunity to cooperate. She chose lies. She chose theft. She chose betrayal. A pause. My client is prepared to fully confess if she can avoid prison time, her lawyer said carefully. That's when I smiled. A real, genuine smile. Because now, finally, she was scared enough to beg. And begging was the first sign that she'd lost everything. But here's the thing, I wasn't finished. Because there was still one last truth I hadn't shared with anyone yet. Not even Tom. The final ace I'd been holding in my back pocket. And when I played it, it wouldn't just destroy Rachel. It would take down Daniel too. Because while Rachel thought she was using me as a cover for her crimes, she had no idea what I had discovered about Daniel's side operation. Something so big, so illegal, and so damaging that federal investigators would crawl all over him like vultures the second I dropped the files on their desks. Rachel sold out our marriage. Daniel sold out her freedom. And now? I was going to sell out both of them. Daniel Carson. That name was starting to taste familiar in my mouth, like an old wound I never knew was bleeding. While Rachel had been spinning her web of lies inside my home, Daniel had been orchestrating something much bigger on the outside. And I had finally uncovered his real game. Tom's investigation had peeled back every layer of Daniel's little empire. Turns out, Daniel wasn't just teaching Rachel how to skim a few dollars here and there. No, Daniel was laundering money. Big money. Money that didn't just come from shady side businesses, but from offshore shell companies tied to international fraud rings. Real criminal enterprises. He was using his old network of ex-classmates, overseas contacts, and financial proxies to move dirty funds through a long chain of fake consulting businesses. One of which, of course, Rachel had been unknowingly attached to as a partner. Her name sat right there on the corporate filings like a noose waiting to tighten. The best part? Daniel thought he was invisible, protected, untouchable. And for years, he was. Until Rachel's affair opened the door. Until Matt folded like a cheap chair. Until Tom and I started digging where no one had dared to dig before. Now I had him. And I was about to snap his neck with it. I met Tom late one evening in my garage. Quiet. Private. The kids were asleep upstairs. The air smelled like motor oil and cold concrete, familiar, steady things. Unlike the circus my life had become. Tom placed a hard drive on the workbench. That's everything, he said. Every account. Every transfer. Every offshore entity. Names, dates, amounts. And we've cross-referenced it all against Daniel's personal assets. He looked at me with a slight nod. It's enough to bury him. And her. I stared at the drive for a long moment. Good work. Tom hesitated. You sure about this? This move brings the feds in heavy. That's exactly why I'm doing it, I said. Because Rachel wasn't just a cheater anymore. She was an accomplice to organized fraud. And Daniel? He was going to take her straight down with him. The next morning, I made my final visit to my attorney. We sat across from each other at his conference table. I placed the hard drive on the polished surface between us. He raised an eyebrow. Is this what I think it is? Worse. He plugged it into his laptop, scrolling through folder after folder. His eyes widened. This is enough to trigger federal racketeering charges, he said. They'll both be facing serious time. That's the plan. He looked up at me carefully. You understand this will destroy her completely, right? This isn't just divorce or financial ruin. This is prison. I didn't blink. She tried to destroy my life. She dragged my kids into her filth. She used me to launder her sins. I gave her every chance to stop. She didn't. He closed the laptop. Nodded. All right, he said softly. Then let's burn it down. By the end of that week, federal agents were knocking on Daniel Carson's door. Within 24 hours, warrants were issued for every one of his businesses. And within 72 hours, Rachel's name appeared on the secondary warrants as a cooperating partner in multiple fraudulent entities. The house of cards finally fell. I watched it all unfold from a distance. Phone calls, News alerts. Panicked lawyers. Frozen accounts. Matt's little affair? That was ancient history now. Rachel and Daniel were staring down years of federal charges that made adultery look like a parking ticket. And me? I sat quietly at my kitchen table, sipping my coffee, as my phone buzzed with one final text from Tom. They're both done. Congratulations. I knew Rachel wouldn't go quietly forever. She never had the stomach for real consequences. She only knew how to manipulate, not how to endure. And sure enough, a week after the warrants landed, she made her move. It started with the text. Can we talk? Please. Face to face. I ignored it. Then came the calls, dozens of them, one after the other, as if volume would erase guilt. Then the voicemail. Her voice was shaking, breathless, like a drowning woman flailing for anything to grab. Please. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I made mistakes, we both know that, but not like this. Not like this. I didn't know what Daniel was really involved in, I swear. I was just trying to build something for us. For the kids. For the kids. That's when I actually laughed out loud. The kids, she said. The same kids she had weaponized. The same kids she forced to keep secrets, to carry the weight of her filth while she chased cheap thrills and easy money. Now they were her shield again. Pathetic. But she wasn't done. That weekend, she showed up. Uninvited. At my house. Our house. The one she'd signed away not that long ago. I heard the knock and opened the door slowly. She stood there, pale, eyes red, makeup smeared. She looked like a ghost trying to haunt a home that didn't belong to her anymore. Please, just hear me out, she whispered. I didn't say a word. Just stared. I made mistakes. I was stupid. I was desperate. I didn't know Daniel was into anything illegal. I just wanted. I raised my hand. She stopped. Rachel, I said coldly. You're not here to explain. You're here because you're cornered. And now you're panicking. Tears welled in her eyes. I'm going to prison, she whispered. Unless you help me. I couldn't help but tilt my head at the audacity. Help you? After what you've done. Her voice cracked. I'll lose everything. You already have. She reached out, almost as if to touch my hand. I'm still the mother of your children. I didn't flinch. You stopped being that the moment you dragged them into your garbage, Rachel. Her hand dropped. Then her voice hardened. Her real voice, not the trembling victim act. You loved me once, she hissed. Don't pretend you didn't. I did. And my voice stayed ice cold. Until I learned who you really were. She stood there, breathing heavy for a moment, her eyes darting like she was searching for one last thread to pull. You'll regret this, she whispered finally. No, I replied calmly. You will. And I closed the door in her face. The next day her attorney tried one last play, offering full cooperation, full confessions, anything to avoid hard prison time. The feds didn't blink. The evidence was overwhelming. Rachel and Daniel were indicted formally within days. The press got wind of it shortly after, and the world finally saw who she really was. No more lies. No more masks. No more carefully curated social media posts about family values and blessed life. Just two mugshots. Side by side. Rachel and Daniel, finally exposed. And me? Still standing. Still breathing. Still holding everything she tried to take from me. The funny thing about revenge is that the final blow isn't loud. It's not the screaming or the police or the handcuffs. It's the silence that comes after. The world keeps turning. The sun still rises. The bills still come. But for them, for Rachel and Daniel, the world they knew is gone. The indictments became headlines for a week or two. Suburban financial scheme exposed. Local businesswoman and associate face federal charges. Money laundering operation tied to offshore fraud ring. Their faces were everywhere. On news sites, on social media, on the lips of every neighbor who used to smile at us in church or PTA meetings. Rachel's carefully crafted image? Shattered. She went from respected small business owner and devoted mother to criminal defendant in the blink of an eye. And you know what? I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The glares, the whispers, the friends who stopped answering her calls, they handled the humiliation for me. Daniel, of course, tried to cut a deal first. Ratted out associates higher up the chain. Gave the feds everything he could to reduce his sentence. They still gave him 8 years. Rachel followed shortly after, sentenced to just under 3 years thanks to her cooperation. Minimum security prison, but prison all the same. And there it was. The woman who once controlled my life now lived in a cell, wearing a number instead of designer shoes. The woman who once lied to my face now stood every day under fluorescent lights, answering to guards who didn't give a damn about her hardships. And every month when she called for her limited, supervised phone time to check in about the kids, she heard nothing but my steady, calm voice. "They're fine. They're safe. We're doing just fine without you." The kids? They adjusted far better than I expected. At first, Aaron and Lily were quiet, walking on eggshells, waiting for some new disaster to fall from the sky. But in time, something amazing happened. They healed. Without the lies, the manipulation, the toxic stress that oozed into every corner of our home, they started breathing again. Aaron picked up his grades, started playing basketball again, laughed like a real teenager for the first time in years. Lily? She slept through the night. No more nightmares. No more late-night tears or whispered fears about mom's secrets. For the first time, I saw my children as they were supposed to be. Free. One evening, about 6 months into Rachel's sentence, Aaron sat beside me on the porch. We watched the sunset, the sky bleeding into deep oranges and purples. He was quiet at first, but then spoke. "Dad, you never got mad." I smiled. "You think I wasn't angry?" "No. I mean, you didn't lose it. You didn't scream or fall apart. You handled it." I took a deep breath. "Son, sometimes the best way to beat people like your mother isn't by yelling at them. It's by taking away the thing they value most, their power." He nodded, letting my words sink in. "That's why we're still standing, Aaron. Because when they tried to destroy us, we stayed steady." He smiled softly. "I'm proud of you, Dad." And for the first time in this entire mess, that moment right there, I thought it would feel over by now. The trials were done. The sentences handed down. The kids were safe. The house was mine. Their empire? Reduced to ruins. But life has a way of dragging old shadows back up to the surface, just when you think you've sealed them underground. It started with a simple letter. No return address. No fancy envelope. Just my name, scrawled in Rachel's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside, a single page. "I know there's nothing I can say that you'll believe or forgive. I ruined everything. I deserve everything that's happening to me. But one day, our kids will ask for the full truth. And when they do, I hope you'll tell them the part where I never stopped loving them or you. I was weak. I was selfish. But not everything was fake. Some of it was real. I just broke it. I broke us. I hope someday you'll at least let me see them again, even if I don't deserve it. Rachel." I read it twice. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel sadness. I didn't even feel satisfaction. I felt nothing, because that's what she had finally become to me. Nothing. The kids didn't ask to see the letter. I didn't offer it. Aaron was focused on finishing his senior year, applying to colleges. Lily was finally finding peace, friends, hobbies, stability. They were healing. And I wasn't about to poison that with Rachel's self-pity. She had already stolen enough from them. She wasn't getting one more inch. But the letter wasn't the last ripple. A few weeks later, Tom called again, voice low, serious. "Daniel's case is widening," he said. "Feds found deeper connections to some offshore networks. They're flipping more people. Meaning this thing's not done. And your name keeps popping up on some old corporate filings." I clenched my jaw. Even after everything, even after I burned their world down, Rachel's greed was still leaving debris in my life. "It's paperwork, nothing criminal on your part," Tom continued. "But the investigators may eventually want to sit down with you. Clean up loose ends." "Fine," I said calmly. "I've got nothing to hide. Because that's the truth of it. She used me. She attached my name to deals I never knew about. But I never touched the money. Never signed off on the fraud. I was clean. But it was one more reminder that even when you cut out a cancer, the scar tissue remains." That night, as I sat on the porch with a drink in my hand, watching the wind shift through the trees, I realized something. Revenge isn't clean. You don't get to walk away without scars. You just get to walk away. And sometimes, that's enough. 16 months into her sentence, Rachel tried again. I should have expected it. Prison doesn't just break people, it makes them desperate. And desperate people always look for an angle. The request came through the prison's legal liaison. She wanted a hearing, not to challenge her conviction, not to shorten her sentence. No, she wanted visitation rights. Supervised visitation with Aaron and Lily. Her attorney tried to dress it up professionally. "Mrs. G wishes to maintain some maternal contact for the emotional benefit of the children during her incarceration." She believes it may assist with long-term healing and future reunification. Reunification. I nearly laughed when I read that word. She spent years destroying our family and now wanted to invoke words like healing as if that could smooth over the pile of ash she left behind. I sat down with Aaron and Lily that night. No games. No filters. You both need to know, I told them. Your mother wants visitation. Aaron stiffened. His jaw clenched like he was holding back a gut punch. Lily's eyes dropped instantly. I saw fear flash across her face, fear she hadn't felt in months. I don't want to see her, Lily whispered. Aaron spoke next, his voice hard. Older. Wiser. She made us lie to you, Dad. She let us carry that garbage while she smiled like nothing was wrong. She doesn't get to pretend to be a parent again. I nodded. That's exactly what I needed to hear. The hearing was brief. Her attorney made their sad little case. I made mine even shorter. My children are not emotional support animals for their mother's self-inflicted guilt. The judge didn't even take a recess. Request denied. That, I think, was finally the moment it broke inside her. Because a week later, another letter arrived. This one was shorter. Darker. You win. No apology. No plea. No fight. Just those 2 words. You win. I stood in my kitchen holding that letter, staring at it for a long time. Because the truth was she wasn't wrong. I had won, but not in the way she meant it. I didn't win because I ruined her life. I won because she could no longer touch mine. Because I woke up every morning and made breakfast for my kids without dread, without lies, without wondering who was sleeping with my wife behind my back. Because Aaron smiled again. Because Lily laughed again. Because the house was quiet, not cold, but peaceful. Because there was no more poison under my roof. I didn't win through revenge. I won by surviving her. By outlasting her. By standing steady while she collapsed under the weight of her own decisions.